Next, we will talk about examples to manage uncertainty and making decisions. So the course is about decision making under uncertainty. So we'll look at some common examples in day-to-day life. Okay. So first example that we would like to talk about is decision making in one's education. Now think about yourself when you were in school. Those of you that are not in school, your parents had to make decisions such as which school should I put my child. Okay, there are pros and cons. You can imagine some schools might be close to your house. There may be other schools that are better but farther away. Should we put in the one that is closer or should we put in the one that is farther away? Also, there's a lot of uncertainty. If you think about it, right now the school may be highly ranked. We don't know how it will be 12 years from now. So that is another thing to consider. We also don't know what the child's interests are going to be. So should we put in a school that caters a lot to sports? Should we put a school that caters a lot of cultural activities, or something that is heavily into academics? So those are types of decisions that we make as individuals. Now, another decision we make as we go through, maybe when we go to 10th class, is to split into going into the science stream, commerce, or arts. I know most of us, pretty much like to do what our friends and our neighbors and everybody that we know does. But, think about it. I mean, a lot of us pay a lot of attention to what is the right thing to do. And this is a very difficult decision. We need to think about how best to make a decision as to what stream to take, the science or commerce or arts. Now, another thing that impacts a lot of people is, should we spend time and money studying for an entrance exam? Now, this is another interesting decision to make. Think of the IIT JEE exam. Now, if you want to pass that exam, you're looking at investing a significant amount of time, maybe 4 years of your life, and a lot of money going to tuition. Now, is this all a good thing to do? Of course, if you don't do that, you're not going to enter. That's the assumption. I do know of people who have entered without going through any of these tuition, but think about it. Now, that is a decision that we need to make. Another decision is, should we be taking private lessons, tuitions, while going to school, right? I mean, that's a decision to make. It again, it's an issue of money that you lose right now for possibly much nicer future. So a lot of times, this is another thing. Should I keep the money and have a good time, or should I save the money by investing in a child's tuitions? Okay, so that's another decision that we all make in terms of education. Another decision that we make is at college, which I presume most of you listening to this are going to be in. So both before going to college, which college should I attend? Okay. What field should I specialize? Should I take mechanical engineering? Should I take electrical engineering? Or should I go into a completely different field, maybe take a class in management? Okay. What electives to take? I have 3 or 4 electives to choose from. What class to take? How do you make these decisions? Okay. That's something to think about. There's a lot of uncertainty, right? What is the uncertainty here? Well, you don't know how your future is going to pan out. You really don't know what you're passionate about. You probably don't have a good idea of what you're good at and what you're not good at. In those situations, it is hard to make these decisions. There are a lot of uncertainties in terms of how things would pan out. For example, I have a lot of friends that did went through an engineering program, but they right now don't do any engineering in life. So those are things to think about. So there's a lot of environmental changes between now and maybe 10 years from now or 20 years from now. So these are decisions to be made under tremendous amount of uncertainty. Now, another question to ask is, should we go ahead and take up a job, or should we get an advanced degree, a master's degree, or a PhD degree? That's a decision to be made, because your life could be very different depending on how you make that decision. Another thing is, should we become an entrepreneur? That's a risky decision. Now, we take a risk in becoming an entrepreneur. Our venture could be very successful, which is what we hope to when we take up these positions. We could also go into something that may not. So there is a certain amount of risk, but there are definitely tremendous payoffs if you become an entrepreneur. Now, the question that we want to ask is, how do you go about making these decisions? What do you think in terms of, we visited some of this earlier. We want to have we want to make decisions so that we're somewhat conservative. We want to have a wonderful life, a happy life. Usually these are criteria that are used to make these decisions. And we also talked about some of the uncertainties involved. We talked about how things could pan out, how the environment could change, how life could change as we go along. We could get married to somebody else who has a very different plan, and things could be very different from when you actually have to make the decision. Also, what criteria would you use, right? Like I said, there are a whole bunch of criteria. Towards the end of this topic, we will look at a set of criteria that one uses. Now, let me move on to the second example. In the second example, we are looking at somewhat more industrial setting, a supply chain setting. If you're not familiar, a supply chain is one in which there are products that are supplied to, let's say you have a retailer who, like a store, okay, like a shop, who gets items from a supplier. It comes to a retailer, and then customers come and buy from the retailer. Okay, so one of the retailers or one of the supply chain success stories is that of Dell Computers. Dell is a very well-known computer company in the US, and they were the first to innovate in a certain way that completely changed a lot of things that we do today. We're talking about the early 1990s, where there were several computer companies. There were HP, Compaq, to name a few, and they were all selling computers. What they were doing is they were putting these computers in different stores, and whoever came, they came and they picked the computer they want. However, think about this. There are so many different computer configurations possible. Some might want a certain type of configuration, like a hard disk or a RAM, or they may have a certain preference for storage. So there are so many things that are possible. Now, you cannot take all these various combinations and store different computers catering to individuals. In fact, it becomes hard to even predict how many people would like what type of computer. So one thing that Dell did very smartly is to say, okay, we will have an online platform where you could pick what type of processor you'd like, what type of storage you would like, and then they would put together, they would customize a computer for you. Now, when they customize a computer and ship it, there is a downside. You cannot get your computer within zero time. You really are going to look at waiting for a week to get a computer. So that's the risk that they took, that will customers be happy to configure the computer of their choice, trading off some time to get their machines in their house. So that was the risk that they took, but they had some side benefits. Dell was able to understand what various customers are going to need. They understood what are going to be their demands. They understood what are going to be the needs of various companies. Okay, and turns out that Dell was also able to carry raw materials, and the orders came in, they put together a computer, and they were able to ship it away. Now, this is an extremely important thing. Now, instead of carrying the raw material, finished goods, instead of carrying finished goods, what Dell ended up doing, they just carried the raw material. So they carried a whole bunch of storage units, they carried a whole bunch of processors. So depending on, so they had a little motherboard, and then they had a little box, and they would keep putting stuff in depending on what the customer asked for. Some people wanted a certain type of speakers, and then they put the appropriate audio device and video devices and so on. So they really did a great job of just carrying the raw materials and customizing a computer. This way, they were able to do what is called pooling risk, okay, and that way they were able to manage the uncertainty in terms of what the customer demands would be and so on. Now, when there is tremendous amount of variability, and there's also a lot of uncertainty and a lot of risk, and we're going to define in the next set of topic what is a variability, what is uncertainty, and what is risk. But let's say when all this is there, companies are going to be carrying some inventory at regional warehouses. So instead of having these multiple retailers holding inventory, they will put the inventory in a warehouse, okay, in a warehouse, and then depending on where the demands are, they would go ahead and satisfy those demands from a central warehouse. So this is very commonly done by a lot of companies. Now, if you have more information throughout your supply chain, you could significantly reduce what is called operational costs, okay, and you could also manage uncertainty. Now, think of the following. A lot of times when there is an unfortunate situation like a cyclone, you want to know how much there is in store. You want to know, should I carry a little bit more supplies expecting a major cyclone to hit, or I do know, okay, we have enough. You don't even know what the inventory levels are for a lot of your items in your store, and having that information significantly improves customer satisfaction and performance. Okay, we've seen two examples. Now let's look at a third example. Now we're back to a personal individual level. We're looking at personal health. This is a favorite topic among a lot of people. Whenever you walk, people are always asking, so what do you eat? Oh, you look so thin. What do you eat? Oh man, I'm sorry to see the way you are. What are some of the things that you do? What kind of exercises you do? So personal health is a big deal. Now, we have sensors in our body. I mean, for example, your eyes can sense what's going on outside, your ears can sense sounds, your tongue can sense taste, and then you can smell with your nose, you can feel with your, skin. So it turns out your body has all these sensors. Now, these sensors basically carry information. Yeah, if you had a sixth sense, that will be a nuisance. Okay, let's not worry about it. Let's talk about the 5 senses that we have. Okay, now let's look at an example where let's say you have some type of symptoms, such as you're unwell, you have fever, you can feel it, you have a runny nose, you cannot smell, you have stuffy ears, you cannot hear, and you have a light cough. Okay, and let's say you are in that situation and you're thinking, well, I'm really tired, I'm so fatigued, maybe I should just stay home for the day. Okay, that's what you're thinking in your mind. And you're thinking, well, you have to make this decision, right? Should I go see a doctor, or maybe I'll just stay home? Okay, and those are two. In fact, there are 2 decisions here: should I see a doctor or not, and should I stay home or not? Okay, so these are 2 decisions you have to make. Some of us would prefer to just stay home and get some home remedies. Okay, we do this a lot. We probably don't want to see the doctor right away. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Okay, so today I'll stay home, won't go to work or won't go to school, and tomorrow I will see if I get worse, I'll go see a doctor. This is common. Some of us tend to go, okay, let's see a doctor right away, and then go from there. So those are typically how one goes about making these decisions. Now, the situation itself has a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what's causing this. A lot of things have these symptoms of fever, runny nose, stuffy ears, and light cough. Could be a whole bunch of things. It could be a viral or a bacterial inflammation. It could just be an allergy. So there's really no problem, but you're around with pollen or something like that. Or it could be something really rough, like an influenza, which is commonly called flu. And there is some uncertainty there, right? So you notice the uncertainty there. We don't even know what's causing these symptoms. Okay, so say you go to a doctor's office. The doctor will probably be able to figure out what you have. Now that also, there's tremendous amount of uncertainty there. All the devices they use are not 100% guaranteed. So there could be some, but say, for the most part, they're able to determine quite well what is wrong. And if it is a bacterial infection, they would give you an antibiotics. And this is another decision that they have to make. So first decision is they have to figure out what is it that's causing your condition. Second decision is what medication to give you. Now turns out that there's also this issue of history. Now that is also an important thing to consider. So now whether we see a doctor and stay at home depends on how we felt like this. Now we say, oh, I had this last year exactly the same time. It must be allergies. Or you're thinking, oh, I've never felt like this before. I better go see a doctor. Okay, so your decision could depend on your historical experiences. Okay. Now also, like I said, the test that the doctor uses is somewhat unreliable. This day and age, that's not so much the case, but the doctor also sometimes uses what other patients, oh, there is a flu going around in town, so maybe this is a flu. So doctor kind of uses that information in order to make their decision. So notice how we use historical information and habits and so on to make our decisions going forward. Now, the fourth example that we are going to look at is making decisions under situations such as personal finance. Okay, personal finance is something that is extraordinarily important, extremely difficult decision. Now, because we're making decisions for something that's going to happen much later in life. Okay, so what we do, well, when we get our salaries, those of you that are in college right now or in school right now, this is not yet your situation, but if you talk to people who are, this is something that they're concerned about. They're trying to save money so that they could live a happy life once they retire. Okay, sometimes people are looking at saving a little bit and taking care of their wants and needs, okay, as they go as well as after they retire. So what we do typically is we set up some money aside so that we make sure that once we grow older or later in life, say there's a health situation or there's an education situation or we want to buy a house, we want to buy a vehicle, for all these reasons you would want to save some money. So you would want to set aside. The question is how much you set aside. Now that's not an easy one. And also you want to set aside some money for retirement, and this is extraordinarily complicated in some sense, and I think a lot of us fret a lot about this. Now, the first question is how much money to set aside for retirement, and then the second question is once you set aside that money, what kind of investments do I need to make? Should I invest in stocks and bonds and so on, or should I invest in gold perhaps? Should I invest in a house? There are many ways to invest money going into retirement. Now, there are a lot of uncertainties there. How long are you going to live? Okay, what age you're going to retire? I don't know what I'm going to need when I grow old. So those kind of decisions have to be made now based on some of the uncertain events into the future. Now, the question is, assuming that these things are characterizable. Now, I'm not saying that's easy, but actually a lot of financial institutions make you or want you to make those assumptions and then ask you to make investment decisions. So investment decisions are typically based on how you characterize your life expectancy, when you expect to retire, and what your wants and needs are in the future. So it is really important for you to assess your personality and risk. Okay, some people are risk taking, they like to take risks. Some people's personality is such that they don't want to do that. Now that's so your decisions are also depending a little bit on your personality. So one thing that people do, those that are investing in stocks, is you would study the stocks. You would look at historical performances of the stocks. Well, how was it? In fact, one of the 101 investment 101 lessons is to study a stock maybe for one full year and see how it grows so that you understand what's going on before you invest which one to go for. Now, another decision you need to make is, should I go with a low cost broker or should I go with a high cost established broker? So you're thinking about, well, that's another important decision to make. Who do you pick to be your investment broker? Okay. Now, so the whole thing is the following. So there are many steps, and you do this for every single type of decision. This is an example where it is easy to articulate. You read, okay, that means it's sometimes called do your research, and then you collect data. Some of the analytics that we were talking about, right? So you're doing a whole bunch of analysis, and then you do some type of predictive analysis, and then you make some prescriptive analysis, such as making a decision. All right, last but not the least, decision making in sports. Now this is a favorite topic among a lot of people. I understand that some people in the audience may not be interested in sports. I will give a lot of sports examples throughout the course, but I'll keep that to somewhat of a minimum. Okay, so there are a lot of decisions we need to make in sports. I know all of us get really excited when there's a cricket match. In fact, today as we are recording, there's a test match going on between India and Australia. This is day 2 of that match. Now, turns out one of the decisions we need to make is who should be the players, who should be the captain. Well, the captain decision happens way before before going to a tour. But once you're in a tour, You also need to decide who are the players that you want to send. Okay? You also want to figure out who should be the playing 11 if it's cricket, or other games, who should be the team and who should be playing as a substitute. Now that's another decision to be made. Then the toss, you put a toss and then decide what do you do. In cricket, should you bat first, should you bowl first? So that's a question that you need to make. There are other decisions in the game of cricket. You have to decide the batting order. Now those of you that are not familiar with cricket and you know baseball, for example, the same situation, you need to decide the batting order. And in cricket, you have to make a lot more decisions, such as who is the bowler in every single over. In baseball, you kind of decide who the pitcher is, and then you could get a relief pitcher and so on. Now, you also need to decide field placement. Now, this is not something that they do in baseball, but in cricket, you have to decide where you need to put which fielder. In soccer or football, as some of us call, you have to decide which side a goalie should jump. Now, these decisions, both in cricket as well as in football, is made with tremendous amount of statistics. Now, I don't know if you've seen, when you look at a football match, in the end, if there's a penalty shootout, the goalie usually does not have enough time to see when the ball is coming and jump on one side. Typically what the goalie does is, as the kicker is coming in and kicking the ball, the goalie jumps to one side. Now that is a decision the goalie needs to make, because he or she needs to take a chance and needs to know, okay, most likely this person is going to kick it to the left and I'm just jumping to the left, okay, and many times they're lucky. Now, it turns out that decision based on prior information is kind of the decisions we are talking about in this course. Now, some decisions are also dependent on what the other person does. Okay? And for example, this is a game after all. Okay? Now, many situations that is not too crucial. Now, there's a whole field of game theory where they analyze how to do some things based on what the other person does as well. So now we won't go too much into game theory, but I'll just touch upon that topic once more in this course. Now, we all know how much we criticize poor decisions in our favorite sports. So we're like, why did he bring this guy to bowl the last over? Those are decisions that we always talk amongst our families or friends when we watch a game on TV. Now, the other thing is, now sports actually uses a whole bunch of decision making under uncertainty. In fact, people use the word playbook, and by playbook what we mean is, in fact that's a word that's come from sports, but what we really mean is a strategy. Okay, people working in companies also have a playbook. That's the way they do things. Okay, now I would highly recommend those of you interested in sports is to read this book called Moneyball by Michael Lewis. And this book talks about baseball, but it's not so baseball oriented after all. It is about how we make decisions in sports. Okay, I would highly recommend that. I do want to stop by saying one important point though. A lot of times we as spectators, okay, end up criticizing decisions after something happened. Now this is a very important distinction. You make a decision given the information that you have. Okay, you cannot make a decision in hindsight. You cannot say, oh, that was a poor decision based on the outcome. Okay, say for example in cricket, the batting team needs to score let's say 15 runs in the last over, and you brought in a particular bowler and you're going like, oh, that's a great decision. You make the call right there. You cannot say, after losing the game, oh, that was a bad decision. You don't go back. Okay, that's an important aspect in decision making under uncertainty. Having said that, it brings us to the end of this lecture. Thank you.